All right, this should kick in. I forgot how to just show the chat though.
Like, welcome to live chat.
There we go. No, no, we don't need ads. Oh, actually, I can make an ad happen. I'm gonna try that. Actually, yeah. Hold on, I'm gonna mute myself.
I had to remember to like mute the stream itself. I was hearing that residual feedback.
Hey, fellas.
What's going on? Bacon himself.
Hello, hello.
How goes it?
Pretty good. I think everything seems to be running. The background music is pretty quiet, which is good. Oh, no, I didn't mute myself. I'm a bad person.
Oh, on the actual channel?
Yeah. I have it running on the phone as like the backup chat. I don't know. I'm happy that OBS added a chat. Like it's built in now. But I'm also like I don't trust you. You fail a lot.
Everything seems to be offering me that multi-stream option now, and I'm just like, eh. I feel like if you're on 7 platforms at once, it's great. But if not,
yeah. Like if you've already gotten that following, but it's so hard to manage all those chats at once.
what I saw, the way the chat function is that it just blobs it all together.
Oh, that's better than Evil Crossover was what he was using was his. I think he was using Streamlabs OBS, or maybe it was multi-streamer, whatever. He like chose a primary chat, and then it let him see 2 other chats. But because he had like 7 chats up, he couldn't see them all at once. DM Bacon, if you haven't lowered, actually you should have all speaking lowered because you've talked to him before.
I've actually got him pretty low, yeah.
Okay.
33.
I had to set them to like 20 when I came in. I was like, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I hear the subtle joy.
This was like my sort of cheeky test song. I'm gonna wait for Grimbo to come in to see if he can recognize what the song is, because it'll be cute.
I am noticing whenever you speak, it like fades away, but not entirely naturally.
Yeah, I don't know why. I remember when we were using this setup for D&D, I had to keep it at a certain volume for it not to do that. But I'm like, I think in the case of us talking, it's better if it cuts out than if it's too loud.
It might be only when you do it. I don't think I heard it when Shin was talking.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't hear it when you're talking either.
Yeah. Maybe that's a Discord thing. It automatically knows and uses gain control to lower other apps while you're speaking into Discord. I think that's one of the settings. Could be wrong.
I will look into that.
Dial
as
in.
well.
We'll get there.
That's a good point. Here we go. Blah, 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 blah.
Attenuation. Lower the volume of other applications by this percent when someone is speaking. Set to 0% to completely disable. So if you drag attenuation to 0, let's see if that changes.
Mine's at 0, but only for me. Let me see. Wait, then that should be exactly what's correct. That's super weird. I'm going to turn off when others speak, see if that changes anything. Joker's here!
What's
I
up,
choked
Joker?
on my own spit. That was a terrible start.
The killing joke. I think you sound a little better now, or at least the background.
Cool. I will keep it this way though. I think I have him on 3 currently. I'm gonna bump him to 5. So you can really hear that. Oh, it's also not. I noticed it was like cutting out his guitar specifically. Like it was just like, wah.
Oh yeah, now it's back.
Oh well. Whatever.
We'll figure it out the old-fashioned way.
Yeah. Good old-fashioned trial and error, baby. I also don't understand why I can't use the mouse wheel to do the user volume slider. I have to manually drag it.
That's actually a feature in some apps instead of a bug, because some people, you're scrolling down the page and then your mouse happens to fall over a slider, and then all of a sudden you're scrolling and you're just moving a slider and your page isn't moving. So sometimes they disable it on some sliders, and when I'm writing apps, sometimes I disable it.
Oh, when you're writing apps, you're so cool! What's up, people? I figured for most of the way I broke it down was if it's clerical work for D&D, I'll do it on Twitch because I'm used to doing what I consider clerical work, like filling stuff in and hiding things and
snap.
Notes. VF's here too.
VF, Joker, and Evil? What in the world? It's a magical day.
That's a party.
This is a good day.
It's a D&D party.
Oh.
Seriously. Who rolled a nat 20?
I'm so excited.
Hey, guys.
What's going on, everybody?
I was going to ask, Joker, have you ever played D&D? That I don't know. I don't think we've ever spoken about D&D with you before. One of the guys I went to college with, he's trying to break into streaming as well. And I'm trying to catch up on all of his VODs from his streams. Another day, I was watching a VOD of him. He mostly plays horror games, but I was watching him play Resident Evil. And he's playing Code Veronica. He couldn't beat Nosferatu. And he tried like 7 times. And he's got the camera on him. He's got his blurred background. It's just him and his camera and his microphone. He's talking to the chat. And then he stops. And instead of just saying, hey, can someone help me? He stopped and typed into the chat, does anyone have any tips for beating this guy? And I'm like, what? You've been talking this whole time, man. Like, why did you stop to ask the chat that in chat?
Oh, that's funny.
Maybe the delay? Maybe he has like that little tiny delay.
Could be. It's just like, what? We can hear you though. I gotta make you a mod in this. Wait, I think are you already? I don't know what the check mark is. Can I make someone? I can. You're a mod now, Hoff. I think.
But I can say it.
Heather's also a mod. Still, I think.
I'm gonna say I'm kind of excited to delve into the other half of this list.
I like that we made it exactly halfway through in that first one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we do a slight recap for any of those finding part 2 before they found part 1? Just to, I think we always backlink, but yeah, Okami, what are we doing here?
We are taking a look at a homebrew class by you, Tundra Boy, called the Empowered, and this homebrew class basically built on superheroes. That's the whole idea behind it. It was a suggestion from Grimjack, and we've basically been going through and talking about what we think is good, what we think is bad, how this fits into a typical 5e campaign, and how some of these abilities could be rebalanced or made better.
Definitely a cool pass. I like what they were going for. Their theme, kind of martial, not high magic or high fantasy necessary. It's something we've seen in a lot of pop culture these days. It's individuals who, through some either genetic mutation or some event that triggered something within them biologically, they become empowered. So it's a pretty cool build if you're a martial type, if you like fighter, monk. see a little bit of paladin come through, but not in like magical divine sense. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It little overpowered at times, but also in other ways, I think it could be balanced and really made great in the right campaign.
I do think that this is something that lends itself really well to a personal campaign of only empowered players in its own sense. It definitely, I think, Bacon, you said it best, definitely further away from the fantasy of D&D that we're very accustomed to, maybe even going back to kind of the way we imagine Spelljammer and other like planes being in the D&D verse, but also very much a pop culture reference, as you can tell from a lot of the images and the ideas. But I think something that can be worked into very easily, as long as you have a really cool empowered bad guy at somewhere, or in my personal opinion, league of villains for your players to take on, because I definitely agree that some of these abilities are kind of crazy.
Wait, did you just suggest the villain should have the same power as the heroes?
What?
But different and crazier?
Yes.
Holy
I'm saying,
you just changed
I'm saying
everything
throw
for me.
empowered at the empowered.
I love it. No, absolutely. That's what we see all the time, right? You know, you have Ultron versus Iron Man. You have, you know, all the variations. I'm not gonna list them all, but this is a pretty cool embodiment of that. So yeah, what was the first one that we saw, Kami?
The very first one was the Idol, which is kind of like your charisma base. They help. They're like the support subclass for the empowered. Our major issue with it is that, yes, like a lot of the stuff makes sense, but some of it is you just make the other people on your team stronger. Like they get an extra hit die when they hit things. And it's basically just you going, hey, be strong now. And later on, it makes them twice as extra strong, which is a little bit too powerful for your typical campaign. Like you don't want them to have all those extra hits just from yelling at them. The other things are like you give them extra AC or you let them run faster, which makes sense if you're being like, "Hey, you got to do this thing," or you're giving like a rousing speech, like if you're a Steve Rogers type soldier.
Yeah, you said it best. I will say I don't think it's the capstone on the subclasses, but the capstone on the class is invincible. Cue the animation of the word just heading in with blood splatter. For one round, I think until your next turn, you get this invincibility frame, and I think it's a cool idea. And in some places it might be crazy, in others not so much. But then each of them also have a pretty cool final. So what was this one's 18th level capstone?
Glorious purpose. Basically, you give yourself the speed, the AC boost, the extra strength, which kind of makes sense. You can keep doing that to other people, and you're immune to being charmed and frightened.
That's pretty cool.
I do think that's an interesting part, though, the charmed and frightened aspect, because you don't really think about, in just standard 5e, I don't think you really contemplate the potential power of charm and frighten compared to the high damage spells that you usually get around past 10th and 12th level. So the idea of being able to stop yourself or stop a teammate from being charmed and frightened, and in this case, turning on your entire party, that's kind of cool.
I think, especially what you just described, I think a lot of people just take charmed and frightened as like the default states. Like, oh, I'm this person's friend, or, oh, I have disadvantage on my attacks. But there's plenty of creatures just in base 5e, and I'm sure in past editions that are like, they charm you, but while you're in this charmed state, these things happen. Or you're frightened, and because you're in this frightened state, something happens to you. So when you said like turn on your team, a lot of people are like, oh, you just stop fighting. But someone could charm you, and like if you know Fireball, make you Fireball your team or yourself.
It's funny you mentioned previous editions too, because I think of one of the current campaigns that I'm in. The ability, a very early level 1 magic spell, Sleep, is potentially the most game-breaking spell in human history, because it turns a regular 2-hit HP wizard into a murder hobo if he sleeps an entire room full of goblins, because you don't even wake up from the sleep. You just get to take a dagger and take everybody out. So I can tell you I witnessed it. I think I witnessed it in 5e and other editions as well, but it's it's definitely a potent ability when you really start thinking about debuffs and debuffing these. I think we called it last time around almost demigod-esque characters.
Yeah.
So I think that's really
early game. That is amazing, and even beyond that, come to think of it, like if you weaken an entire party down to a certain threshold that you feel, they're starting to look bloodied. They're, there's less of them in a certain area now. You could sleep, the rest of the battle, and then non-lethal, or in your case, take them out, make sure they don't get back up. So it is very powerful, underutilized in lieu of big magical evocation blasting spells for sure. Okay, so I didn't mean to only highlight the capstones, but I feel like they give a flavor. You can skim through our previous video for the item abilities moving up to that. So what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, one thing that both of you guys had mentioned is like, personally, and I think you guys were all correct on this, and DM Lakara said it too, this class almost seems like not necessarily a prestige class, but it seems like something you should multi-class into because it's so strong. Or like you had mentioned in Ravnica, it would make sense if like this was your Planeswalker spark coming into being.
Yeah, something exactly innately within you. It just needed a certain, in our case, beat of a story to get there, or a moment in your character's arc, since they're coming into the campaign. It could be something truly cool with the right party, the right DM, and the right player.
I like it. And then the next one we went through was Conduit, which is like a Human Torch type character where you've got some elemental ability that's built into your character, and you can fire laser beams, and you basically have a hyper beam for your capstone ability, which is like this huge poof, and then you're kind of like burnt out afterwards.
It definitely gave a lot of shades of Warlock Eldritch Blast on drugs and super steroids in a lot of ways, from the way it kind of affects itself, but almost in an odd mix of an Eldritch Blast meets like a Dragon's Breath attack, or like a Dragonborn's Breath attack. I think we kind of touched on that as well with both Bacon and Lakara and yourself last time around. And I think that even looking back on it after, the hyper beam effect, the capstone ability, as powerful as it is, we mentioned that it's an indiscriminate beam for 100 feet. So anybody within that blast range is as good as gone. So it's powerful, but you could risk taking out your entire group incidentally, or killing a bunch of civilians accidentally as well. Something most would probably consider very unhero-like.
That could even be like the start of your campaign. Like there was a hero, and in order to do what he had to like unleash the hyper beam, and it obliterated a building and killed a whole bunch of civilians. And now he's on the run from the law or what have you. I didn't realize how much like The Boys that was until I said it out loud.
I like to think when I saw fire, cold, or lightning, I was like, obviously Human Torch, Electro for lightning. I was like, who's a good cold? I was thinking of X-Men, but then I was like, Frozone. You could totally make a Frozone-like character who's, jovial, or otherwise, he has a marriage and a relationship that he has to cater to outside of the party. But he's actually keeping the city's best interests at heart. So, you can make this into really anything, not just a huge blaster caster, martial character, but so your own embodiment of that.
And the next subclass, or they're calling them power manifestations for this, because all the subclasses per class have I'm gonna call it a silly name. It's a silly name. They're all subclasses. The next one's Speed Demon, who obviously is built on the Flash.
Speedsters.
Yeah, feels very hyper monkey. It feels like it feels very super monk-esque, especially when you think of Speed Demon, the first ability, not to go through all of them, but when you look at the first ability as well, it reminds me very much of, and I'm blanking on the ability, even though I've run Amok 1,000 now like 3 times. I
Step
think
of the
it's Step
Wind?
of the Wind. Yes.
Step of the Wind, yep.
Okay. In which you're getting that amazing ability to dash. I mean, it seems on paper, it seems very odd, but when you really start to put it into chasing, chasing mechanics in a campaign, or trying to escape certain things, or even just getting into the throes of battle, like being able to take that dash action pretty much for free almost is amazing, especially when you're doubling your dash. Unarmored dash is already on a monk usually like a 45-foot turn 90, and 90 feet in a game is pretty detrimental. You can run right up to the spellcaster in a regular 5e game and end their turn very quickly.
Oh yeah, what's so fun about this? I forget if the monk has it as part of Step of the Wind. I know it's part of the mobile feat. Your movement doesn't provoke opportunity attacks, so you can literally run around the entire map, not get hit by any of the opportunity attacks, run right past your enemies, just like the Flash, while they're frozen in time, watching you with only their eyeballs able to move, and manipulate the arena in what way you can in your time and your action, your turn, and get right back to where you were, or where you need to be at the end of the turn. So it's a really cool visual and ability to move around the battlefield.
For Speed Demon, I think that we keep saying like, oh, these are like demigod status characters because they have so much health and they're so built into it. And we had said before, like some of these abilities, like even though Speed Demon is working on strength, I would be totally okay if someone in a campaign I was running wanted to be the Speed Demon and was like, can I use Dex? Because I don't really, you can stomp real hard, but it's not the same as running, right? Like that's Dex for me.
Yeah, sure. I think we even touched on it last time that Tundra Boy did a great job with this, but I do think that I agree, and we all did agree as well, that there are certain adjustment to stat modifiers that I think each player should get based upon their manifestation, or their subclass pretty much, because certain subclasses make more sense with certain stats versus like you said in this case, Dex over strength for a Speed Demon. I'm not imagining the Hulk running at 500 miles per hour.
Oh God.
I'm imagining a very kind of nimble person moving, still strong in stature, but their speed is gained from the force of their punch gaining force.
Sure.
Versus having a whole lot of strength behind it in the first place. So
love that.
I also am very happy to see that Tundra Boy included you can complete mundane tasks like in half the speed it would normally take. A lot of people just look at a subclass or a class in general and they're like, how can this help me hit people? And that's all they ever think about. Like, how will this help me in combat? But there's a lot of the game that's not combat.
Sure. Reading, writing.
Absolutely.
I think of like wizard stuff, but that's a whole different class. Like in scribing, I guess you could put it in there somehow. But artisan's tools, I think, is a really cool use of it. Like you have the time to bang out, all the dents in your armor, or whatever that effect has in your type of campaign, in no time because you're the Flash.
But even like camp setup, I would say.
Oh,
maybe.
that too.
Sorry, not to cut you off.
No,
but
I was
camp
say,
setup, that I think that would work.
Like usually when you see something that's like, oh, you can do a minute, there's some clause in there that says like, when you end this, subtract however many seconds from a minute and you can do it again. But super speed is based on your proficiency bonus. So you don't have to worry about managing time. It's like, have you done it? Okay, you can do it again. Now you're out at the beginning. And honestly, the less math you have to do in a game is the better the game.
Or someone might fight you on that. I'm not sure where I fall these days. Sometimes I like a little math, sometimes I don't like doing math. So I hear you.
Before we started the stream, I was looking at blah, blah, blah. I was looking at athleticism, which is the other ability you get at level 3, where you can take the dash action as a bonus action, and your walking speed increases by 10 feet. Then it increases to 20 feet. It should say by 20 feet at 14th level in this class. Like, if you paired this with a monk, you would be running circles around the map, especially with the double dash that you get from this guy. Just zoom, zoom, zoom.
Yeah, I could see that turning into a very frightening player character, but in reverse, a very frightening NPC or enemy character as well for your party to take on, because just imagine someone zooming across to your conduit, putting two different subclasses against one another. You've got 100-foot blasts, but when you have somebody who can close that 100 feet in a bonus action, that's kind of scary too.
I love that. Even as like a funny, almost taunting of the party. If you remember at the beginning of Ultron, I'm gonna keep throwing out MCU because it's the most recent thing I've done. At the beginning of Ultron, Quicksilver runs out of the castle, runs through the field right past Hawkeye, and Hawkeye's like, "We have enhanced on the field," and he just hits him and taunts him. You didn't see that coming, and takes off. Doesn't even kill him, doesn't do anything to him. He just shows him that he's there and he can do that if he wants. It's actually, that's an amazing point, Shin.
Like, and taking that, when you're running a campaign, if you've got bad guys that are like that annoying to players, they're gonna remember them. Like, those are the moments they're gonna remember.
Oh yeah.
Not that you couldn't also do that as a player, but looking at it from the DM side.
Oh, we got one for Team Small Math. Nice. I guess it depends. If I'm DMing, I don't want that much math. If I'm playing, I'm going to add up every single modifier, dice. I'm going to roll my whole thing if I can, and I'll give you the number. How much I damage did that stupid dummy.
Listen, sometimes those maths really count when you're on top of a giant statue trying to beat up somebody's, ancient wizard grandpa. Just say it. Those numbers really add up.
Next up, we have bullet time. I was actually thinking of this before the stream had started. I went through again and I was like, does he have a vibration ability? And then I realized that's what bullet time is, but they don't describe it as vibration, even though that's what it's supposed to be. But it's that when you're using super speed, you can impose disadvantage as a reaction when people attack you, which is basically the same thing as the flash vibrating to stop attacks from actually hitting him. But the cool thing about this is if someone misses you with an attack, you can essentially teleport 5 feet away, so you can move on to the next box. So them attacking you is actually moving you a little bit even more. Like, you're just all about moving all over the board. I think bullet time by itself, if you could work the vibration or however you want to do it, if you're running like a space campaign or Spelljammer or something, you have something like, you're something on you automatically moves you when you're attacked and it misses. Like, I think that would be a cool feat.
Okay.
Max Payne as well. When I read bullet time the first time, I was like, oh, it's just slowing down. But no, this is more of Flash's like vibration.
It almost makes me think of the Cloak of Displacement. It gives you that displacer beast kind of mirror image that if you get through it, then you can keep attacking. Otherwise, you're doing. I mean, this is once per turn, so it's not too overpowered, especially at 7th level.
Yeah, unless you have some way to regain your reactions per turn, you're probably not going to use it more than once. But it's still, like, the addition of, even if he just had the imposed disadvantage on one strike. Though I think this is one of those times where I think it would add something to the gameplay interaction between player and DM if he added the clause that's basically like you can make the decision to impose this disadvantage after the dice have been rolled, but it hasn't been decided whether or not, like it hasn't been announced whether it hits or not.
Oh my god. I mean, that could be like a later level, and it kind of goes back in time a millisecond because he goes so fast, and he's able to see the result and therefore change the result. And as long as you don't go too far back, Flashpoint. But that's a cool. I like that interpretation.
What is your question, Grimbo?
I love questions for the panel.
I love being called the panel.
An attack misses you as a result. You can move 5 feet. I wonder how useful that would be. Because then they would just move 5 feet, presuming they haven't already spent all their movement to get to you that turn.
I'm thinking this is more likely to be used when somebody's shooting at you. So, like, they shoot, they miss, and you get closer. That makes them even more scared of you.
Interesting. Or when you get into their melee range now and impose disadvantage on their archery, or if you're near cover, you move 5 feet, behind the nearest corner.
I'm almost thinking of it very, to kind of go the anime route, very Ultra Instinct-esque, in which as this barrage of attacks is coming at you per turn, you're getting closer and closer and closer. Like you said, it's going to impose disadvantage. But also that image of this thing that you keep missing flying at you, essentially, that puts a lot of fear into your enemy's heart, I feel like. And it could create for an interesting kind of change in tactics, from a DM standpoint, on how maybe you want to run that battle, or how the tactics of the enemies in the battle might shift because they don't have the ranged advantage. They're the high ground, The mini Marvel part of the
that
supplement you expressed.
I had said that I think, especially based on the final ability in the idol subclass, I think if your character had some biological way to, like my example was if they had a chimera's tail and they could shoot a spine out of it into one of their teammates, and that gives them power, that makes sense to me. Or if you were physically touching them to give them the power. But the way that the class is described, there's no flavor for that ability. It's just you go, you're strong now, and then that person is strong.
Yeah, it reminds me of like a mass bardic inspiration, or like a barbarian's war cry. I would definitely want some flavor behind it. I wouldn't. Yeah. I mean, you can accept all kinds of flavor to everything, but I would ask the player, how do you do that? How do you inspire the entire party on the brink of disassembly from falling apart and bring their spirits back up? And I want to hear something good. I might give them inspiration if they do, because like that's the whole point, right? You want to feel inspiring. That you want to embody that character in that moment.
And I think we've all seen it in different campaigns that we've played in or run, in which your player or yourself have given that riveting speech, and sometimes your DM is just like, wow, okay, you know what? Everyone's riled up, ready to go. That kind of story addition. I think it's important to never forget the story part of a D&D game and campaign, because like we mentioned before, most people look at it from a combat only standpoint, but if you give this inspiration to somebody in the midst of a group of heroes trying to lift something off of maybe some people trapped, I think that's a great place to use it outside of combat, because you're inspiring everyone to put everything of themselves into it and kind of giving them that hope. We saw it all the time when we were kids, and I think of like Gamera. If anyone remembers, like Gamera is like one of the kaijus. His whole thing was the power of the children. When the children cheered for him and all the Kennys were like, go Gamera, go, he got stronger. But it took the children inspiring him. And you made a great point of a mass bardic inspiration, Bacon. that still takes a song of inspiration being given to the party to do better. So I definitely would want my players to keep me, I guess, in a, as mean as it sounds, entertained in the way that they want to use that ability.
And that's level 18. If they haven't formed that character in that campaign between themselves, their DM, and everything, then it is what it is. But I could definitely see it working, Grim. To your point, yeah.
I would
with
take Grim's flavor. If you put that in as your flavor, that every time you were like, I need you to be strong, and that other person got struck by lightning, that's fine by me.
Oh yeah, totally.
I think that's a great way to flavor it.
I think we're all in agreement, though. That flavor is definitely the missing ingredient for that capstone ability as a whole.
All right. Speaking of which, we're moving on up. We are at rushing strikes.
Yep, rushing strikes. Essentially, when you do that, basically Flash's version of the you can zoom into someone and then punch the crap out of them.
I think this gets scarier when combined with your third level ability, because of how fast you're already moving by 14th level, which is when you get the additional 20-foot bonus. That really puts, I feel like, a fear in the heart of somebody, and now being able to kind of run through them and just strike them down in one quick shot. Yeah, that's a fun flavor, and I'm glad that it's added at the 14th level, because even from a narrative point, by 14th level, it's kind of even piggyback what Bacon's saying. By the 10th to 14th, by the 10th and up level, I feel like your character in its game, in its campaign, and in its party is established in the way that they're doing things, and they are understanding narratively what they can do. So now it's like refinement of the ability and the craft.
So be whacking them because of how this class is built. You're whacking them for 2d10 on an unarmed strike. So assumedly you've got extra attack? Does second extra attack, or sorry, another extra attack kick in before that? No, I don't think so. Just fifth.
It's martial. I wouldn't. No, it doesn't have extra
Yeah,
attack.
it only has one extra attack. So you're hitting them for potentially at minus extras. Like the average would be 20 here, 22 damage. But if you strike true, like 40 damage in one swing on an unarmed strike.
You could do unarmed as a bonus action as well, I think, by default. No? So you can...
I think you can.
Wind up, hit him, run back. You don't provoke an opportunity attack. Run, hit him for the second attack. Run away, and then come and uppercut him one more time for 3 unarmed strikes. I like where it's going.
Oh man, so many dice.
Yeah, that could be fun.
So, the player just like throwing dice on the table and DM being like, crap, my creature's gonna go.
If you've got haste or a potion of speed in this campaign, now
we've gotten too deep. I'm scared.
Notwithstanding, dipping into fighter for 2 levels, which honestly with these classes is very reasonable, very attainable if you're in a 5e setting. I would think, unless you're a solo class. This can get pretty crazy at 14th level. I like that.
And then your capstone ability for Speed Demon is Time in a Bottle, where basically you can create a time stop. I didn't realize how time stop worked mechanically, because I'm sure, like many people, I've never seen it in a game. But I did see it in the D&D movie, and it doesn't work quite like that.
DM Shin and I've seen it firsthand, and we have our DM in the chat.
Yeah, we've witnessed the power of time stop. It is a frightening. It's frightening mechanically what you can get away with in a time stop.
I think we triggered it, right? There was this machine, and we knew as soon as we triggered it, we'd have some time. And the god Sidon, almost like a Poseidon-like character of Greek mythos, he was coming. He was coming home to his temple. He was gonna mess us up for what we were doing. We were barely scraping by at that point, so we were like, all right, we have 10 turns or whatever it is. We have to figure out how to make the most of it. So we go in the main chamber. We start messing around in there. I think we tried to plant a trap. It didn't quite work. And then we had an NPC that actually was affected by it, or did she trigger it stopping? Because we didn't account for that.
Yeah, I believe she was affected by it.
Right.
And I believe that, yeah, we definitely didn't prepare for that in that situation. But
like, what are we doing?
Yeah. We were like, oh no, wait, you're not moving with us. But sure enough, the implications of a time stop spell, and cool, you pulled it up. The idea that you're able to utilize these multiple turns in a row, unaffected by everything else around you, is scary for a DM to player and a player to DM, because it can be the difference between that little bit of extra healing to get you to survive that next turn that you thought you were going to die, and flavor it in where something is occurring in a number of turns. Well, imagine somebody flinging something at you. It's going to hit you in 2d3 turns, and then a time stop spell gets placed. That's still coming. And you've been stuck in time, and now they can add so much more to lock you in place. There's so many different ways you could flavor the spell. And in our campaign, I mean, we needed every turn we could get, because man, that was a rough. That tower, that temple was rough.
Yeah, there was no mercy. And no, I forget if we even used it to its full extent. I'm trying to think of it in terms of like how a speedster would use it. The real restriction is towards the end. If you affect a creature other than yourself or an object being worn or carried by someone else, then it's over. So if you're in those rounds and you throw something, it's being thrown at real time for you, and it's going to hit them. So that would, your first attack would immediately end it. So you have to use the environment. You have to use what you have in your pockets. You have to, use some strategies with your party to get the most out of positioning and how things are going to happen when it comes back. So say there's a door that is blocking you from the other room. You have time to go close that door, lock it, and whatever was charging through that door is going to hit it. If when things resume, or at least be stuck by it. Changing the lighting in an area could change an entire scape if your enemies don't have dark vision. Like turn out all the braziers and torches.
Yeah.
And you have the advantage of basically an ambush when time resumes with your surprise round or just advantage on your attacks because you're hidden. There's a lot of cool ways you could use it.
I also
I like that you mentioned the. Oh, sorry.
No, go for it.
Oh, you first got me.
I was gonna say.
I was only gonna say
the very last ability is like the very last portion of time stop is it'll automatically stop if you go more than 1,000 feet, which I think the only time that's gonna affect I understand if you were teleporting it would affect it, but for the speedster, like that's actually a limitation.
Yes.
Sure. It's not the
mind you, 1,000 feet is quite crazy.
True.
Yeah, I would think of it as like 1,000 from the point that you started in any direction, not like you moved 1,000 feet in that turn, right? Maybe I'm interpreting differently. I would think it's if you move 1,000 feet, you're essentially what you were saying, trying to use like a teleport. You're trying to get as far as you can in an instant, and in this case, they're just limiting you to 1,000 feet, which is still very generous. If you can get there in 10 turns. That's already that's pretty good, but it's a good escape hatch. They're just saying, if you can't really abuse it further than that, but maybe there's an interpretation that it's like if you do more than 1,000 feet in that round, then time is going to resume. That's as fast as we can reasonably put on a 9th level spell.
Fair. Sorry, I cut you off, Shin.
Oh no, I was gonna say I do think this also though opens up the discussion for a DM to allow a lot of sandboxing in their campaign as well, because you want the players to realize you hit someone, it's over. However, you set up things to block them, impede them, turn off the lights, all these different things in the environment to really play with. And you really start to get your players to say, okay, I can't just cast Fireball because then it's all over. But I can get to a good advantageous point so that when time resumes, we've gathered things in a great way so that I can cast Fireball without hitting the party, or I can use this ability without hitting my party. Take a simple spell like Thunderwave. A simple bit like Thunderwave, which usually affects everyone in a radius around you. You can get people in your party to a safe space and allow your Thunderwave user to completely nuke an area freely without affecting anyone. Because I can tell everyone here, do not cast Thunderwave in a tower that you have summoned. You will deafen 2 players in your party who can't hear any commands and have to figure out in the middle of battle what to do. But more than that, I think that it really opens up your players to think outside the box. And I think that outside the box addition to being able, especially at a high level like that, where things are deadly. 18th level, most players do not see that in a campaign. And at 18th level, the world is petrifyingly frightening. You're dealing with pretty much things that may not even exist in your fabric of reality. And I think that's completely acceptable to do in a lot of situations. To have people say, okay, we've frozen everything. I almost think of even like going back to like Dragon Ball Z, Guldo on Planet Frieza, on Planet Namek. He would stop time, throw a rock, and run far enough away so that when the rock came down, he was anywhere near it, but the rock was still going to hit you when the rock was going to hit you. It really lends itself to a lot of cool, creative ways. And on a speedster, who doesn't want to stop time? Who doesn't want to be so fast time is stopped?
I love that.
He's added the caveat that when you cast Time Stop as the speed demon, you can grapple and shove whoever you want without resuming time. So very, very Flash-like. So you can like drag people around to get them out of the way of things. Like that's your thing. Like I slow down time, gotta get everyone out the way. Or I mean, in this case, get people in the way. Though I will say that the way that he has shove is you shove them, but they only get shoved after time resumes. So like you push and then you have to wait for the time stop to stop. And he's saying if you push them prone or into an obstacle, they take 3d10, which is a weird precedent for him to set here because later in this document and the other document, whenever you do something that shoves a player, he never says they take damage from hitting things. They only take the damage from you pushing them. So I don't know why this one is different than all the other shoves.
It is a lot. It's the speedster. Like you're using the speed force itself, for lack of a better word, in order to push them into an object, not just shove them. So I see where it's going. I think that's crazy, that overpowered. Like you can just shove. You have 10 turns, so you can shove 10 times at least if you're not using extra attack for it.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty crazy. Originally I was thinking, oh, you're like a trickster. You're gonna set caltrops around the enemies. You're gonna put like a grease bottle in front of them, and as soon as they step on it, it's gonna trigger this other fire thing that's gonna set it all off. But this is insane. This is so much more than that. Which again, 18th level, maybe that's what you need at that time.
Just running around level pushing on like Tarrasque legs. Here you go. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you'll need it for a Tarrasque, but even more, 3d10 at the 18th level, it's a lot if the dice are in your favor.
Sure. Oh yeah, that could be 3. That could be 6 damage.
Yeah. Yeah, you've got a wide way of the dice could play with you, and it can be detrimental. But again, I do think that this is why it lends really great to having enemy versions of this as well, because frozen time and you get shoved for this 3d10 damage. Well, that's going to change a lot for you. So but it doesn't prompt me to want to ask you guys, what would you say then in the situation where a player wanted to necessarily shove a creature out of a window?
Ooh.
Would you say that impact on the window undoes the time stop? Or would you say they wouldn't feel the impact of hitting said window until the time stop spell or until this bullet time and time in a bottle ended?
And
This gets around it.
Yeah, because they only move once time resumes. So
Okay.
And
I would
objects
give
only
them
matter if it's being worn or carried.
I would give them the falling damage of however long they fell, and I would give them the bludgeoning damage from just being shoved at super speed. Technically, you're hitting an obstacle if you're going through the window.
That's true.
That'd be a hell of the end of the time stop round. All of a sudden, all the enemies just burst in every direction. A few go flying out the window. Some are all of a sudden, knocked down through the floor, like Street Fighter style. I don't know.
Oh yeah. It could lead to a lot of craziness. It could lead to a whole lot of craziness and a lot of frightening moments, I think. But again, that would be on your players to really think of the environment around them. Because in a basic situation, you may just get a player just knocks them down for 3d10. So it'll allow them to really play around and hopefully play with the environment. I just will never put my players in a tower after level 15. So for shoving my creatures out of window.
Oh yeah, I see. We have some blast enthusiasts. Absolutely, this could be an opportunity for a makeshift mine. All of a sudden a claymore just appears in front of the enemy, and they have that Wile E. Coyote moment where they just pan to the camera and wave a flag, and then boom, as soon as the time stop ends. Yeah, absolutely, it could be really cool to do that.
I know that I have PTSD from playing Helldivers with Fist, because when you wrote that, I just imagined him calling down a bunch of stratagems that lay out minefields all around us while time was stopped. So at the moment time resumed, we just explode.
Sure.
Yeah,
Man is a terror.
What? No, he's just super democratic. For democracy, Helldivers. But overall, though, I will say, looking at the Speed Demon as a whole, it lends itself to a lot of cool abilities and a lot of outside the box thinking to me. Like I mentioned before, I do think of it as kind of like a hyper monk. But I think that that's very early on, and that when you get into the later stages of the subclass and the manifestation, however you want to flavor it, it really does start to branch out and show its identity. Really playing with the idea of not just your fast, but your speed and how it affects the world around you. And I think that that's why time in a bottle is a perfect capstone for this personally.
I definitely,
I like it.
so far, well, I really like the conduit, but I would be okay with someone being the speed demon, like in my game. I don't think it really needs many tweaks. I think it is actually fine the way it is.
And generally more fun. Everyone just wants to run up and hit something, or stay really far back and hit something. This guy is like running around doing his thing, his or her thing, and manipulating the environment to their liking, to their needs for that particular battle. So I think that's really really cool way to incentivize the players to come up with interesting tactics outside of just hit it until it's dead.
Yeah. For sure.
Peace, VF.
We'll miss you. All right, I'm switching it over.
Our illustrious Greek DM.
The
I don't know if he's
the legendary VF. Definitely a DM that helped us think outside the box and made us use the environment, I think, in a lot of ways. I
Oh yeah,
think
we were in
I,
some weird situations.
I think DM Bacon and I have a permanent fear of any inanimate object because it's probably a mimic.
I think the campaign opened with, we went into a nymph's grotto, and the first thing we saw was like a nice rug, and there was something interesting over there. So we were like, check it out. We investigate. Seems fine. Walk away. All of a sudden, our captain of our ship is smothered in a rug. And we were like, oh my god. And we start stabbing the rug, and we're stabbing him. And we're like, we only have like 10 hit points or to our name.
Oh
So
yeah.
it was an amazing way to make you really stop, think, and be cautionary of the world.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
As
But
Jimbo
ooh, I
said,
see some people talking.
the next one is Titan, which is basically the Hulk. But the weird thing is, the image that he chose is Ace from One Piece, who is made of living fire. I don't understand why Ace is not a conduit picture. Why is he the Hulk?
I mean, it could have been Thunderbolt Ross, you know,
I
with
mean, I
his
would have taken
huge
that. What's your power? Gun.
um, but I did. I'm kind of glad we got to the Titan because this was one as I read through the document that I was really intrigued by because of pretty much its first ability, True Form, which essentially makes you larger, and it's very rare. A lot of spells, a lot of abilities, and things like that, and do affect or do have an effect for them on size of what you're dealing with. And you don't really think about size in a lot of situations. Someone going from small to large, larger to larger and stuff like that, it's actually a very frightening thing because a lot happens mechanically for you and a lot stops affecting you, like pushing and shoving and things of that nature, and also the effect of things pushing and shoving you. Because, once you get too big, you may not be able to push and shove everything around the same way.
Absolutely. Or you become big enough now to suddenly be able to wrestle with a huge character, like the one size up category that you normally can't do anything to because you're usually stuck at medium.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
To answer your question, Grimbo, Bloodline of Sparta Tiefling would probably be closer to one of the classes in the extras document. The one that they call mutant, which isn't, like, it's not what you think of when you think of a mutant. But that one is actually very close to Bloodline of Sparta Tiefling, and I have a bunch of stuff related to that when we get there. When we get there. And there's another one, like the true form for the Titan is another one that's not, like, you don't have to do math. It's just, did you do it? Okay. What's your proficiency bonus? You could do it again, which I personally prefer. Math is hard.
I do, though, think that when kind of scrolling down and seeing as it does mention that successful grapples and shoves on a creature adds bludgeoning damage equal to your pure strength die. I think if you're bear hugging or truly shoving something down, yes. But if you're grabbing something to restrain it, I don't know if I would give it the same damage.
Yeah, all of a sudden you're throttling them.
Yeah.
When every time you grip someone.
Why you little every time?
Yeah.
Well, it's like you don't know your own strength, I guess. But yeah, I don't know if I. That's a good point.
I had a note down here that flavor-wise, the way that this kind of works made me think like, oh, maybe if you wanted to take the idols, like the exemplar, the thing that makes you stronger, if you took this kind of idea where all of a sudden they have like an aura around them that looks like a bigger version of themselves, I would accept that flavor-wise as well, instead of like your suggestion of lightning coming down on them, or us saying like, oh, you gotta hit them with a spine or touch their back. I'd be like, oh, if you made like the manifestation of their soul appear, like a stand or something, like okay, I can understand you being stronger that way too.
I can see that. I can see that.
I feel like Simmering Fury is too weak. My issue with it is that if you're a rules as written DM, you would never do this. But it's also in addition to whatever your charisma is. But so even if your charisma is your dump stat, you're still doing that. But I feel like if, like me as a DM, if our barbarian is trying to intimidate someone, not with his words, by like his ability to smash something, I use the strength modifier anyway.
Yeah,
I understand
it's
that this is
usually a
extra,
gimme.
but I still feel like it's kind of weak comparatively speaking.
100%. Need something.
Yeah, and I do feel like this is a class that is one of the few manifestations that should stick with the strength constitution build of everything. Or if you wanted to, you could flavor it as a pure constitution class.
Okay. So maybe a defensive, use your or you can add your constitution to a saving throw once per turn as a reaction.
Yeah.
Something. Okay.
Next one is Living Weapon, which is one of my favorite abilities in either document. Essentially, anyone that you're grappling now becomes your club. It's a whole subclass feature to use your friends or your enemies as weapons against other enemies.
Ultimate Tavern Brawler.
Yeah. I think we've all witnessed the same Avengers scene of Hulk turning Loki into his personal fly swatter. And I think this is literally, Goblin Railgun, the ability built in, the ability to just lob something or just beat somebody with another person. I personally think I'd run away if I watched, two of my teammates turn into battering rams.
Yeah.
I will also say with this specific ability, since you can become bigger, I would even say like there should be a bonus based on like what size creature you're using. Like if you're swinging with a small or tiny creature, it should deal less damage than if you got bigger and then hit someone with a medium-sized creature.
Okay.
I can see that.
Scale it.
And
Joker has another cool suggestion.
You can throw them.
Fast, yeah. I would totally allow that. I mean,
100%.
you add that instead of doing the damage to them, you kind of add that damage to their next attack if it hits the enemy. So you still got to aim them, right? You still got to roll an attack roll. You get your proficiency, you get your strength modifier. Absolutely, they are gonna do whatever damage if they're holding a pointy sword out, or maybe they're just gonna sock them too. Add your strength, or is it their no? It's add your strength against them.
Yeah, I would definitely let that. I would definitely let that fly in my campaign.
100%.
Really cool visualization. Joker, I'd love you as a player.
I know. You didn't tell us. Did you play D&D before? I feel like, not that I think you're like Fist in our group. Like you can tell he wanted to play D&D. He wants to play D&D. And there's like this weird thing where like Grimbo was like, oh, I don't want to tell him because he'll make fun of me. And we're like, he wants to play. I don't think we have that with you. Like no one would ever be like, I don't think we should tell Joker we're playing D&D. But I feel like you would have so much fun.
I think everyone should try some TTRPG in their life. Doesn't matter what system, doesn't matter, what the characters are. It just takes a good GM and you bringing your whole to the party. It's really a good time.
Plus, you get to buy some click-clack math rocks, and I think between the three of us, we have enough dice to fund a small village of people rolling d20.
Hey, if these things are currency in the apocalypse, we're good.
We're rich. We'll beat out people with bottle caps at this point.
Oh yes. But it does take us into the next ability, Mighty Roar. I think this one's interesting because roar mechanics, sound mechanics in D&D, I've always found very interesting because of the way most abilities that utilize sound mention that sound carries. And this does not note sound carrying very far.
This is like the it's not Troll's Roar. Troll's Roar is the one that shoots, but there's a what is it? Ash of War and Elden Ring where you just like stomp your foot on the floor and like howl at the heavens and people who are around you get stunned. But this is one of those cool ones where it's like, oh, they take the damage and then if they fail, well actually no, I think it's anyone rolls this. If you fail, not only do you take damage, but you get deafened and stunned. So like within 10 feet of you, if you're large size, which you will be because you're in your true form, like that's a huge swath of people that have the potential to be stunned. This could be amazing.
Stunned is pretty
And
crazy.
it could lend. I think it lends to a lot of retreat options. It has a lot of ways that it can be flavored. And who doesn't want to let out pretty much like a super scream and pretty much scare and stun and deafen? Because deafened, again, going back to when we were talking about like status effects and debuffs, deafened means they can't hear orders from others too. So, you know, somebody who is controlling someone using like, you know, as they're called somatic and vocal components, well, now they can't hear those vocal commands and they're kind of stuck wondering what in the world to do because they're deaf. And that is a game changer in a lot of situations. Deafened by itself is scary, but stunned on top of it means until the start of your next turn, that means that you are just free to be fastball special into the rest of the room. So there's a lot that could go crazy with that in the right situation, especially again at 14th level when things get a little more wild.
Is that the one is stunned where you have advantage against you, obviously, but is any hit an automatic crit? Am I thinking of that wrong?
I think you're right.
That's insane.
I will take a look.
I bet you it won't come up here. I'm gonna have to look at the. Oh no.
You got a party of empowered, and you just stunned a ton of enemies. The speedsters ran around hitting everyone. Yeah, I like the visual of how this works together with a party, because you know, just stunning them. I guess this is when you enter your true form, so that you wouldn't be too large yet, but you do get it's a bonus action, right? It's not like his action.
I think it's yes. To transform is a bonus action. Yep.
So you're stunned in 5e.
Oh yeah,
incapacitated, can't move, and can only speak falteringly. That you automatically fail strength and dex saves, and any attack rolls against you have advantage.
Okay, ignore the crit.
I think incapacitated. Oh no, just can't take actions or reactions. Oh, unconscious. Unconscious is you take crits.
That's the crit. Okay, but even still, yeah, stunned is amazing. You as of all people know, Shin, having actually both of you are
we both had monks that stun people.
Loves to stun people all the time.
I once in the same campaign that our friend VF ran that I was with Bacon in, as well as some others, I had stunning striked a griffin on the side of a boat and then proceeded to elbow drop it off the side of a boat.
Oh my god!
It was a glorious moment on the sea when I stocked an entire griffin out the sky and stunned it. So I can only imagine doing that at 10 feet. Because 10 feet is both vertical and horizontal in every case. Yep. And that means something flying above you no longer has that flight advantage. Sure. All those pesky bugs and birds and bats that are flying above you instantly turn to ground fodder.
I love that imagery. You're running up a wall because this thing is like 60 feet in the air. You just need a good athletics check, and you're launching off that wall, bursting into your true form, and with you, these things start falling, and you can just ride it down as like an unarmed strike into the ground. It's still going to take fall damage. You're still going to get, you know, your attacks off on it while it's stunned. That's a really cool way of putting it.
I was thinking flavor-wise, like you stun it, it starts falling, and you just grab it and like atomic buster it into the floor.
Yeah, elbow drop that bird.
Yeah, the flavor you just gave Bacon, 10 out of 10.
Amazing.
That's the spice of life right there.
You inspired it. And I will say, having a monk on your team who's stunning is amazing. So having you as my party member, being the DM of a monk who is always stunning, is somewhat frustrating. But does it feel good? You know it feels good for the monk when it comes through, because then all of a sudden everyone's like, okay, focus fire, all hands on this mother. And you just go ham. This one trick DMs don't want you to know.
So don't use it, folks. Don't let this done. It's great. If we're DMing you, we're gonna have you ask you to forget that we told you what stun does, please. No.
I might make a short out of that. That was perfect.
Oh,
that's good.
I think we move into Gamma Quake.
Yep, Seismic Slam. This is basically, we had mentioned, DM Bacon mentioned it before, like this is your Hulk moment. Just grab a person and wham, 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 pretend they're Loki.
Uh-huh.
Oh, Shin was saying that. Yeah, absolutely. I love that imagery. So what is beyond living weapon? Let's see. Use an action to repeatedly slam the creature in a fit of rage. Oh, that is that literal ability. They try and make a saving throw. Good luck with that.
10d10, way stronger than most of the other capstone abilities. But it makes sense because, you know. And in addition, not only do they take 10d10, they get knocked prone and they're stunned until the end of your next turn. So you could probably just do it again because they're going to fail.
Well, you can Mighty Roar into Seismic Slam. So you can kind of, in a crazy way, chain a stun there. You don't want 2 stunned turns because you'll automatically take the 10d10 because you're going to automatically fail the strength or dex save being stunned by the Mighty Roar. So these are actually very interesting in the way that I think this is one of the first times we're seeing in this document where they combo into each other in a great way.
Combo!
Did they give us shove or grapple as a bonus action with this class? Otherwise, you got to grapple them, hope they stay grappled until your next turn, and then use another action.
I think you're correct. It does not say.
That is true.
No, yeah, it's part of your action.
Of all the things they've been giving out for free, I feel like they should have just gave them, like, as a bonus action, you can grapple.
Yeah.
I think that would be something. I think that would be a good addition to this class. You know how we've kind of gone through and noted. I think then that would be kind of the one fix, giving that additional ability to bonus action grapple.
Even if it's only when you're in your true form, I think that's fine. I think it actually makes more sense when it's only in your true form.
For sure. But no, it's still a cool ability, cool visual, a good one-off. If you can grip the big bad in that turn and you just go ham, that's a hell of an endgame move right there.
Oh yeah. And the more flavor you give me on that slam, the happier I will be as the DM, because the imagery that I'm painting in my head of it is very much just devastating, and I can't imagine any enemy wanting to get up from this and be like, yeah, let's continue the fight. No, I think you need to take several seats, sir, and just relax.
I'd say like they can keep going into the ground so hard that, you know, the floor breaks and they just throw the corpse below them. They use the whole like room. They don't just use the floor. They use each wall several times. They see like, they're in an armory and they're just beating them on all the mannequins with all the suits of armor. Things are clanging around. This could be flavored pretty cool.
When you said that just now, I thought of Marvel vs. Capcom 1 and 2. Jin, he has a command grab that allows you to pretty much you grab the person, you run around the entire screen as you slam them. It's very rare, and I don't think there was ever really a command for it, but people who figured it out just knew it. And it's very reminiscent of that, where you're just kind of slamming them around the room, just using them as a human mop. It could get really crazy. It could get really crazy really fast. And I do like that it's balanced that once you've seismic slammed someone, you have to long rest to use it again.
Yeah.
I think consistently being able to beat somebody as a human bat, then simultaneously run them around the room for 10d10 would be extremely overpowered. So I do like that it has that limitation for both players and non-playable characters, because it changes the tide of battle. It obviously changes the way your tactics are going to go going forward. But it's just super cool to think of how awesome it's going to be to watch a whole room get blown up by somebody's face.
What you just said, okay, Mighty Roar, stun them, then the next turn, you grab them, you seismic slam them. They still happen to be stunned. The next turn, you might as well pick them up and fastball special them. Now they've served their purpose. You've beat the crap out of them. Now they can beat the crap out of their friends for you.
Beat an MFer with another. I think that is the true dream of every D&D player at one point or another. We've all wanted the Goblin Railgun.
This isn't like the same power scale as the one with Time Stop. Like, say they succeed, right? You're on a boss. They might have a legendary resistance left. They might succeed. They might not get stunned. They'll still take, what is that, 60 damage. 10 times 10 is 100. Have it, and then add the number of dice. 60 damage for that attack. That's still pretty great. Time Stop, he's going around hitting every single enemy out a window, doing fall damage, 3d10 on a shove. He's got 10 turns to do it. He can hit 10 times 3d10 damage in all that time. It's another scale when you just do 60 damage versus messery. So I wonder if it does need balancing, maybe it's just the flavor of the class.
I think that this one works well within itself. Maybe compared to others, not so much, but I think that in its own subclass, I think this is well done because I think that it does maximize what you can do.
I think
because when I first read Seismic Slam, I thought it was like going to be like an earthquake spell.
Right.
And that worried me that you were going to get 10d10 in a large area. So the fact that it's single target makes sense because you only have, in most cases, 2 hands.
Yeah.
I think also it's like a different... A Titan gives you a different kind of fear than the Speed Demon does. Like the Titan, you see it coming. The fear is that it'll get its mitts on you. But like with a Speed Demon, it's the same thing as the Flash. Like you don't know what he's going to do. And that's a different kind of like, oh no moment.
For sure. If they just gave him the grapple as a bonus action, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense.
100% with you there. Next on the list is the Vigilante, which obviously I feel like just looking at the picture, you guys in the chat are going to be like, hey, that's the one for you, Okami. It kinda.
Vigilante's interesting. Vigilante, I think, is really interesting comparatively. It really is. You know, I think we mentioned last time around with Dan Lakar as well, how a lot of these, like we've said even before, that a lot of these classes are very much almost prestige classes of the base D&D classes. This is the super thief to me. This is the super rogue to me. But it's like a rogue who really, really doesn't care about picking your pocket. Like stealing your heart is a very literal thing for, I think, the vigilante. But get into it.
My first note for this subclass is, imagine if you had a vigilante / shadow sorcerer multi-class. Like, that is that it doesn't get any edgier than that.
It's pretty edgy.
We have the Shadow Monk.
Ooh.
Gloomstalker.
Or even like I was gonna say the Gloomstalker.
Man, everybody loves the Gloomstalker.
Hey, in Baldur's Gate 3, they slap.
Oh, I didn't even think.
Little rogue. I use Thief because you get an extra bonus action, which I think is a cool way to increase the action economy. Is to, this class has an extra bonus, or this subclass has an extra bonus action to use. And as a thief, you can, or as a rogue, you can bonus action hide, dash, and there's another one. But in this case, I think we actually see that in Prowler, he can take a bonus action to hide, which is a pretty cool. I like using the whole economy, especially if they don't have bonus action Hex or Hunter's Mark or Bardic Inspiration or a healing word. You like to use your whole turn. So using the bonus action to hide is pretty sweet.
And then it leads into other things, like you can bonus action hide and then try to grab someone. You've got advantage on it. And just adding, like, I know a lot of DMs, like when you grab someone, like they're assuming that you're like putting your hand over their mouth, but in some cases you can't do that. So to have it built in that when you grapple someone from the shadows, they can't make noise to tell other people, like the stealth implications are amazing here.
Oh yeah. It opens itself up to a lot of stealth, and even to go after that, to note that you can prevent speaking or performing verbal components of spells. That's huge.
Oh yeah, they can't even Misty Step.
Yeah. Like, that is huge.
You just send this prowler around the map while like the villain's monologuing and the rest of the characters are like, yeah, tell us more. Like, oh man.
This makes the hide action, which I think it sounds weird to say, but I think a lot of people didn't realize was an action, and or a lot of people who've only kind of come into 5e more recently didn't really realize was a true action until like Baldur's Gate 3 really kind of like highlighted it in a way. It's always been there, and I give Baldur's Gate 3 its roses for highlighting a lot of the bonus actions that every character has regardless of class. So to flavor up an almost forgotten feature outside of rogues is amazing. Like, I think that's really amazing to do, and I think there's a great job of it.
That's all one turn. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Run up to him, bonus action hide. You're gonna probably succeed in your stealth check because you're probably doing dex, which we had some question. Should their main stat always be strength and con? I think this is another one that would probably do better with dex, just like the speed demon.
I agree with you.
100%.
And so they hide, stealth. They're hidden. Using action to do the grapple. I guess that's the part that would be based on strength still. So that'd be hard to argue. Can you use your dex to grapple? That's normally a no. They can use their dex to escape a grapple in an acrobatics check or an athletics check. But if you're making an athletics check, you want to make sure that your strength is also up there to make sure that you can actually physically hold them in the grapple. So that's another situation. But once you do, they can't do anything. The highest mage of their order can't use the 9th level spell Meteor because you just stealth up behind him and put your hand around his mouth.
And the cool part is you also get chokehold as your 3rd level ability. So like when you choose this subclass. So whenever you try to grapple someone, they have disadvantage on that check to escape.
That's pretty cool.
And also, you choke them real hard, so unless they're gonna take damage. They might call you daddy, but they'll still take damage.
You may activate more than just damage in a dice roll, but it's worth the chokehold. But I do agree that I think that keeping stuff to that, still being a strength roll for the grapple, but being able to add that damage on, I think that is a cool flavoring of the pure strength die. And I know that we mentioned before that we would all maybe change the name of pure strength die to something else based on, what it was. But in this situation, I think this would be a cool use of that die for sure.
Just thinking about it, since it has added damage, what would be crazy cool is if the mage you're grabbing is in the middle of a concentration spell. Then you grab them, you stop their spell with the damage, and then they can't cast anything else.
Oh yeah. Well,
Maybe
yeah, if the
you
damage is
wait
high
for
enough
them to
and breaks
cast
the.
it.
It's got some implications that could be really fun, I think.
I like that. I'm still griping with you still need Dex to succeed a stealth check on hide. You really have to triple stat this class as written.
Yeah. I just like the beginning of No Escape. At 7th level, you've had enough of your enemies trying to run. No escape. But I do think that this ability needs like some kind of flavor. Like it doesn't. It's not cool the way it's written. You need something. Because they're really far away from you.
I think. Yeah, I think this is when you're really going to lean on your player using this ability to let you know they're utilizing No Escape, but tell you in a really cool way. Maybe like kind of a nod to their teammate as the enemy's running away, something of that nature. Because I think, like you said, it lacks the flavor, which is fine in some cases because you do want to lean on your players to flavor things for you as well. You know, it's D&D is a narrative game. And you want the narrative to carry. And I feel like this is going to be a good time to make it less of just a roll, but a cool back and forth kind of moment.
What Grimbo just said, I think that makes sense. If you're like, say your character has a bolus or a grapnel or something, I was thinking because of the image, they're making it seem like you have power over shadow. Shadow tendrils make sense, but I would even say like your character has kind of like threads, like the puppet masters in Naruto have chakra threads. Like your character's just got a little bit of a thread that's attached to someone, and they can see if they can pull them back with it.
Or the good old 50 feet of rope.
That's true.
The adventurer's greatest tool, 50 feet of rope. Never leave town without a 50 feet.
You just lasso him like a cow.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I love that.
From the shadow.
Excuse me, sir.
I would allow a grapple check for 50 feet.
Oh God, if you succeeded on your hide, they don't know it's coming, and then all of a sudden they're lassoed. They're like, "Where's the cowboy?"
Sure. Lasso of truth.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Let's see now. You can use this as any type of movement to reach the creature, but you must be able to sense the creature's presence. That I do appreciate, that you do have to both break your current grapple to do it and be able to see and unobstructedly get to this creature. I do like that a lot. I wouldn't want it to be where, this person's running through almost like a labyrinthian like area and you just snatch them without seeing them. Very much Patrick getting snatched up by Sandy in SpongeBob. Don't insult Texas if there's a vigilante around, obviously. But I think it'll be a lot of fun. I think that'll be a lot of fun, and it's gonna be. It's good that it mentions that you have to break your grapple. So maybe you did scare the last guy in the room who has the key or some information that you need, when you grappled and choked out his friend. But you do have to let that friend go. So you do have to kind of gamble on giving that spellcaster a chance to cast again. So it does lend itself to not being overpowered in that way. Because if you did grab the cleric casting power word die, because they can't use their words, you are now leaving them open to the potential of doing something next turn. So hopefully you would flavor that in well with your team as well. I like it.
This could also be used like right before a chase is going to start. If there's just one guy left and their morale's too low, so they're getting out of here, and you happen to be closest to them, like maybe you could stop the chase before it even starts.
Yeah.
DMs love that.
Very much so.
Another trick DMs don't want you to know.
Oh man, we can make a listicle at this point.
That could be a whole other episode. Things we don't actually want you to know, but we would love if you tried to use it.
Next up, we've got Ominous Stare. Whenever you grapple someone, you can force them to make a wisdom save by looking into their eyes. So it's kind of like, has that penance stare flavor, kinda, like from Ghost Rider. However, they say you have to look into their eyes, but if they can't see you, then you fail. I don't understand how unless you're invisible, like you can't look into someone's eyes but not be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't be hidden. That's just encouraging that you're in sight? I mean, so there's no directional in 5e, right? Like you're facing every direction at the same time. So as long as they're within a reasonable line of sight to you, there's nothing blocking the path, and there's enough light, or otherwise you're able to see with dim conditions, they can see you. This, I think, just means you can't be hidden when you do it.
So you have to not use your like most potent class ability.
Yeah, which is a little bit of an anti feature. But getting frightened by you until you escape your grapple, bonus action. I don't know.
I feel like this one needs some kind of tweaking. It's just not. It's not good enough compared to the rest of the classes, like the rest of the subclasses.
Frighten is nice, but they could still run away. They can still run behind something. They no longer see you. They no longer have disadvantage on their shots against someone else in your party that they can see. Frighten is it's much weaker than stun. I'll tell you that.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, I mean,
kind of like Ghost Rider. That one ability is very Ghost Rider.
I would argue incapacitated.
Okay.
I would maybe change Frightened to Incapacitated.
Especially if you're going for a Ghost Rider theme, that makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Frozen in their own guilt, their own shame. You're a vigilante, right? You're making them rethink their worst actions and come to some amount of empathy that their victims have, and you're sharing that in that moment. And they're frightened because of it? No, yeah, I'll make them stand still while you beat on them for a turn at least.
They all of a sudden they piss themselves, and you're like, it worked.
Like, congrats.
Speaking of,
what have you done?
Good. Speaking of not being good enough, I don't like No Mercy. At 18th level, once per turn, when you successfully grapple or shove someone, you can immediately target the creature with one strike.
That it's
like, at level 18?
I just threw up my mouth.
Yeah, that's painfully underwhelming. Especially, it seems like this class is super front-loaded. And just completely falls off at later levels, which is very disappointing because the imagery given for the class versus the abilities given, they don't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because other, manifestations seem to do it so much better. And I don't really think that this aids to the idea of a vigilante. I would almost say that if you could grapple someone out of the shadows, maybe at the 7th level, when you're doing no escape, you get that free strike.
Yeah,
You're
you could
just
just add
getting.
that right into a previous ability.
Yeah.
That just
Yeah,
it's so
I
weak.
also think at this point they're forcing the unarmedness. Like in the other classes, I was like, okay, I can see unarmed being more about this, but in this class, especially when you want a higher dex as well as your strength and con, um, but you want that dex to hide, then using maybe a finesse-based weapon, or a dagger or a short sword, or
Oh yeah.
maybe are you just trying to avoid gore at this point? You're just trying to be like a beat 'em up character. I feel like this is a melee. At least embrace the melee. You're sneaking up behind him and you're just gonna punch him in the back of the head. It's lame. Even
Yeah.
Batman has friggin' batarangs and his gauntlet blades that he'll slice him up if he has to. He's not going for a lethal kill maybe, but he's going to disable to maybe hit a point or a muscle.
Yeah, it's just I really can't say any better than it's just so painfully underwhelming that it almost detracts from the cool parts of this class.
Yeah. Like
I
because the end, like you said, it's so front loaded, like I I would be almost disappointed if I was running a campaign that made it up to tier 4 and I had a vigilante like in the party. I would feel bad for them.
yeah, yeah, this is I think Bacon, you really touched on it there in that it's forcing the unarmed. I would be upset for them. I would fall into a behavior that I don't necessarily want to do, in which I try to overcompensate for it in a way
Hmm.
in my campaign, because it
Oh.
really would feel painfully underwhelming to reach this 18th level, and the best thing I can do is choke and grab somebody.
Yeah.
I can pop out the shadows, choke you once, make sure you don't escape, and then punch you in the throat. Like I don't feel like I'm very 18th level,
I
because
hope
let's
you
be
do.
fair, you're not going to choke and punch a dragon in the throat.
No.
True, true.
That's why I think mobility. They should lean on not speed demon level mobility, but maybe like if we're talking about Batman, he has his cape. He's able to descend. Maybe you take no fall damage. You can fall from any height. You're
Oh.
trying to fall on the back of that dragon, or that character, and grapple them and from the chandelier. You're just coming in and getting them while you silence him, and then your party rushes in the room. Like that would be at least something use of the hide and the mobility.
I almost feel
Yeah.
like, based on what you said, Shin, that this class, the onus is not on the player in tier 3 and tier 4. The onus is on the DM to give the player something that works. Like they're giving the DM more work because like the DM has to find some item that makes like somebody who's frightened, something else happens to them. They got to give them some item that counts as an unarmed strike, but it's not.
Yeah. Yeah, in older D&D games where magic items are pretty much the only thing you have in most martial classes, it would make sense. But in 5th edition, I feel like this severely you're almost kind of forcing the player to be an equipment junkie.
Yeah. And granted, your pure strength die is going to be, what, at 14 it's a D10, and at 18 it's a
Mhm.
D12, but still, like, that's not going to compete with the rest of your team doing things.
You've got people who can slam people around at 18, shoot hyper beams, stop time, bolster the whole party, and the best thing you can do is, like I said, punch a guy in the throat after you choke them. I don't think that's going to work well for you. In the law, I feel like your player is going to feel very, I guess, almost railroaded. I feel like they really would feel like a railroading as a player. Even for myself, I'd feel like, oh man, maybe I made a bad decision.
They should have just called it Vigilante Injustice.
I almost feel like you're either putting the onus on the DM to make something to make this class feel powerful, or you've got to sit like behind that player whenever they're playing and be like, you should multi-class. You should multi-class.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. If you get to level 18, it's a very improbable, whether or not you actually get there. But it has to scale with the other options for sure. And if it doesn't, then, multi-classing is your best bet. And that kind of, I would say, takes away from some of the reason you went into the class. Maybe sometimes you just want a dip. You just want that third level, or even a 7th level ability. But getting this far and getting this is your payment, I don't know. I wouldn't feel good.
I would not recommend. I would even say like maybe making like Prowler and Chokehold by themselves, amazing. Like if you just wanted to stop at level 3, I would not hold it against you.
Yeah. Maybe it's a rogue dip. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, before we move on to the next one, which is the Super Soldier, I'm going to hit the add button because YouTube keeps bothering me. So tell me what you guys see out in the chat when I hit the add button. Please and thank you. Okay. It's really annoying.
Add. What would you add?
So I have currently YouTube Studio is like, hey, when you run a stream now, you can either have us insert ads whenever we want. And I was like, please don't do that. Or they're like, you can set up when the ads go through. And I was like, all right, fine. And when you start the streams now, it has a little window that's like, are you sure you don't want us to do the ads? And I'm like, yes, go away. And it comes up every once in a while, and I'm like, just go away. If I play an ad, will you stop coming up?
I have premium, so I don't think it would have popped up. Grim has ad.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get it either.
Oh, never mind. Hopefully it doesn't come up. Then if it doesn't come up,
live anyway. That'd be weird during live.
Oh yeah.
I have. The next song is absolutely perfect for Super Soldier. I'm hoping I don't get. I've been playing a song from Odd Taxi for like the last half hour, so I don't think this is gonna be any worse. But
Final Justice.
We have to play Captain America's theme while Super Soldier is going.
You can play Final Justice at any point in time. You can always play Captain America's Marvel vs. Capcom theme. It's the greatest theme of all time. Next to Giles.
Oh, that's true. Sometimes you just gotta go home and be a family man.
But the Super Soldier. Interesting thing, kind of coming from the Vigilante. Actually, now that I think about it, the Super Soldier is the only class that openly says use a weapon.
Yeah.
It's the only one of the grouping that says, hey, weapons are a good idea here. And it makes sense. You are trying to be, Captain America. As much as me and DM Bacon flashback to our campaign, a shield is a hell of a weapon. A sword of wish is a hell of a weapon, and you can get some really crazy weapons in 5e. In D&D as a whole, there's always been amazing weapons. So I'm glad that there is a class that says, hey, you're tired of beating it with your bare hand. Get a big stick.
Oh yeah.
I also like that you get 2 types of weapons, so like you can pick and choose. Again, obviously you're probably gonna take a shield because you're Captain America. Like you're probably gonna take a shield as one of them, but I think it's. I also think that this specific class, like in your world, if you wanted to make someone who's essentially like a sword saint, like somebody who's just like, oh, this is like our they fought the dragon and won with their sword, like they're the legendary warrior. Like this subclass was made to flesh out that character.
Joker, absolutely, a
100%.
walking cane can be a weapon. Absolutely. If you like a trash can lid, I will let you rock. All right. It can be the most legendary trash can lid in human history.
There's a lot of people who are like, this weapon wasn't made to be a weapon. It's improvised, so it only counts as improvised damage. I'm like, shut up, man. Just let them have their flavor.
I am a big fan of you can change the hit dice of something if you can feel it makes sense. So yeah, a walking cane can absolutely hit like a quarterstaff or a short sword.
Walking cane and oxygen tank. The cool thing about this is, like, I almost feel like, so when we started our campaign, Jack DT was like, I want to be Goblin Slayer. I want my thing to be, I just pick up weapons and throw them, and I want that to be my thing. Like, I just pick up whatever's in the arena and I throw it, and I'm like, you could do that, but that's not anything special. Like, that's a basic component of D&D, that you could just pick shit up and throw it at people. And so we kind of changed it to, he's an archer. He's Goblin Slayer, but an archer. And I almost feel like this system with their weapons of war, where as you go on, you can just keep learning new weapons, is pretty cool. Like, in that system, being that I think they have access to all the weapons anyway, but if you want to give that to like a player, like as they level up, like this would be good on a monk kind of deal. Like they just learn new weapons as they continue learning. I think that's cool.
Not sure how I feel about it. I like, obviously you need a weapon of choice. That could be, you choose a greatsword, you choose a quarterstaff. The cane and oxygen tank, I love that. Like an old Captain America who's just done with the sword and he's just carrying around his oxygen, whacking him. I love the imagery. The choosing specific weapons, proficiency is whatever. You should have proficiency in all martial weapons as this class. Like that shouldn't be an issue. Adding your strength ability modifier to it as well. Aren't you already doing it? Any empowered ability that applies to unarmed strikes. So it also its effects, I guess, an empowered ability.
So you're gonna get the extra damage of your dice plus whatever the damage of the weapon. So basically, you're hitting people twice with every weapon.
Interesting. Okay, I don't mind that terribly. Then he gets heavy armor, sure. Use strength instead of dex for ranged rolls. Where was this in the other classes?
Yeah,
I feel like it should be the opposite in the other classes. Like
100%.
The conduit is using strength for every single ranged hit, and they have to use all these restrictive things. I feel like I like that. I wish it were in some of the other classes.
And even with the conduit, like they could have chosen use con because it's coming from your body, and instead Tundra Boy was like, strength. I'm flexing that muscle behind my eyeball real hard.
Yeah. But I do like you're throwing this weapon, so you're throwing. I mean, if you're throwing your sword, that's kind of a silly thing. Never throw your. But I assume he has like maybe he trained in javelins and he's chucking those javelins. But that's also strength based, I think. I don't know. I can't justify this anymore.
I just think Sundering Strike really, really like it is polarizing, but it's also like a, oh no, you're giving everyone in the game, because listen, if you're even an okay DM, the powers that your players have, other people in the world should also have. So you're giving every single person in the world the ability to hit your weapons directly and shatter them. You are fundamentally changing the way the game is played.
Yeah, I have in my notes that this is probably the ability for me that I would either give later or take away completely.
Yeah, I wouldn't start doing damage.
I understand it.
Yeah, I understand the cool ability, but like, especially like you said, if you give it this early, like, imagine every enemy you run into doesn't fight you. They just break your weapons, and then when all you can do is punch them. Because this means other people on your team are going to get this happening to them. So like, the cleric's got no weapons now. The rogue's got no weapons now. The fighter's got no weapons now. Like, I would hate if I had to spend like every short rest rebuilding my weapons in D&D. It would drive me insane.
Also, if they're magic weapons, this shouldn't affect them at all, I'd argue.
Also
You're not,
true.
you're not taken out.
Yeah.
Even if it's a +1 greatsword or what's the big one at the end? Not Zephyr. That's what we have in our campaign. The big paladin sword. I don't know. You're not breaking that with damage.
Oh, I know
You
what
just turn
you're
this.
talking about. I can't think of the name either, though.
Yeah. I forget.
I know what you're talking about too.
But you just turn this game into, now you have to keep track of another dimension of damage. Everyone's equipment all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And it's now a survivability, it's Breath of the Wild. You're just trying to beat their stupid shield until it breaks.
Yeah.
I don't like it. Heat metal is the closest I can think.
No, that is.
But that's different. That's disarming. I would argue disarming is more effective than breaking their shit. Also, like, if you break their cool sword, you can't get that cool sword after the battle's done. I am breaking my own loot? Absolutely not.
As someone
Yeah, I'm definitely not a fan of breaking the stuff I
Understandable.
I'm a loot goblin. I purposefully don't shove people into a pit because I want what's on their body.
Yeah, like imagine someone walking up and just like breaking the Sunblade in a 5e campaign. Why would I want you to be able to do that? You know, or shattering a Vorpal sword. Like there's so many cool weapons and items and things like that to just have a third level guy walk up and just be like, you don't get this anymore. No thanks.
And
yeah,
I get where it's coming from.
It's a neat idea.
But it also belongs on the Titan.
Also true.
Sure.
Of all the
You
also
just rip
very
the
much
sword,
true.
you just rip it right out of their hands, throw it away.
Goodbye.
Or start eating them with it.
You have like a
argue that you should be able to bust their hands.
Oh, yes. I'm thinking like the Titan true forms like runs into an army and he's just like grabbing weapons from everybody's hands and he's like throwing them way behind him because he's big and strong and he's just like, that's my loot pile for the day. Just like stealing everyone's weapons.
Yeah. I like disarming. I think maybe disarming is a little strong for 3rd level. It would obviously have to be a save. You would have to throw some restriction behind it, but yeah, something closer to like heat metal. They drop their weapon. You parry or you swipe away their attack. I don't know. Exactly, Shin. You're absolutely right. I would either figure out something better or just get rid of it altogether.
Yeah, not a big fan of Sundering Strike. Shield
we do
of
get
War.
to the Captain America of
Yeah.
Captain America abilities.
Here we go. I will say that Shield of War is the best application of wielding two shields I've ever seen.
As a former shield monk, I can tell you that the shield, you don't realize the real benefits of a shield until you have one and don't use it. The bonus to AC and to be able to keep that AC bonus while simultaneously now using it to somewhat hit and bludgeon people, that's amazing. Now, granted, your AC should go down if you happen to miss. I definitely think that, and it does mention that on successful throw and hits, it bounces back to your hand. I would almost say that I would give them this at 3rd level.
Especially because basically the way this is written, they're not counting shields as part of the equipment that could be a weapon of war.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, shield is traditionally armor, technically.
I'm thinking of
so I would argue that
reasons.
This would be 3rd.
Like if you have a wooden buckler and you throw it at someone and you make it go wubble 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 wubba as like the wood itself warps so it can come back to you. Like, mwah, props to you, players.
Oh yeah. Spike shield just slaps into somebody. Yeah.
Spike shields. Oh, that's good. I didn't even think of that. Also, giving them 60 feet, 120, like, that's pretty good, considering most of the thrown weapons are like 15, 30.
That is pretty good.
You're getting a longbow.
Yeah. And you better have a stockpile of shields, because if it doesn't succeed, it's just sitting 60 to 120 feet away from you.
Yeah.
Just like a quiver, but it's only got shields. You'll look ridiculous. Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
They look pretty stupid. I wouldn't, if they had multiple shields in their hands, I'd allow the flavor. Like, Cap it in Infinity War. Get this man a shield. He actually had 2 on his arms, right? First time we see Cap using 2 shields. I wouldn't give him the +2 bonus for each shield. I know that's like
no.
That might be.
You would get one. You would get 1 shield bonus for your dominant shield, and the rest would just be border. It would be for the purpose of Shield of War. Your secondary shield would be for the purpose of Shield of War. I would even allow you to say that 1 is your throw-in shield, 1 is your shield and shield. But sure. I would very much advise against a player walking around with a bag of holding full of shields. Could be interesting.
Jimbo hasn't said anything, but I know that you just triggered him when you said you could have 2 shields, but you won't get the bonus. That's what he wants his character to ultimately have.
Maybe as a capstone, I'll give you the +2. I don't know.
I wouldn't. I only because a magical shield gains pluses anyway.
Sure. Yeah.
So having a player walking around with 2 great shields that are +5, to kind of math it up a little bit, we're talking about an additional 16 AC for no reason. You're not doing that.
And we already know they're going to be heavy armor, so they're going to be, static 18, 20. Yeah. Then they put the shield on top of that, 22. They get any other buffs, and all of a sudden they're unhittable in the first half of the game. And that's, I don't know.
Sorry, Grimbo. We are cruel. Yeah. We know you.
A floating shield array. I wouldn't be able to give that to a player.
I would say, flavor-wise, this is based on what Joker just said, that there is a what is it called? It's not called a belt. It has another dumb old-fashioned name for what it is because it's like a strap that goes from your shoulder to your hip. And it's it has infinite daggers. I think Vax has one like it, but Dritz Do'Urden has like the famous one, and his thing is he action surges and has like a variation of the time stop ability for Speed Demon here in Forgotten Realms lore. And what he does is he hastes himself, he slows down time for everyone else, and he throws like 1,000 daggers because they just keep respawning in there. I would flavor it so maybe one of the characters could have a strap that goes across their back that keeps summoning a shield, like when it doesn't come back to his hand. I think that's flavor-wise, that's fine. It is a bandolier. It's like a bandolier of infinite daggers or something. But I would do that for the strap that goes on your back. I think that's fine. They just have one shield that keeps reappearing.
And it would have to disappear too then, if it. Otherwise, you just came up with an infinite glitch to create
true
matter.
True.
Matter.
Yeah.
Then I wonder if like it's just like it teleports back to you. I like the flavor that it bounces, or like you can use say the environment, it kind of bounces around and comes back to you. That you guys are in end game territory. I'll say that you're in the end game now with infinite shields.
The infinite shields, you've got to do a whole lot to get an infinite shield belt
shield
from
glitch.
me. Yeah, you're gonna have to really find a good way and spend a whole lot of time doing it, and find someone who's really capable of even building this in the first place if it's in my campaign. I hate to say it. It won't be something you just walk down the street, kick a goon down, and find on his person.
You could make it like I think Cap had one in. No, I think it's Coulson in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has the one that like Taskmaster uses sometimes, where it's a hard light shield. I think magically that would probably make sense. Like you throw it and then it just disappears because it stops existing. The Bandolier of Daggers, and I also have what is it? I have bracers in Bacon's campaign that after I throw a dagger, whenever it hits something, it just disappears.
Oh yeah, I actually found that on the marketplace.
It's like a psychic knife.
Yeah.
All right, Stalwart Defender.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
I really like this, that you just become 3/4 cover. Like everyone hiding behind you. Kind of hilarious. Like you're making yourself and your party 3 goblins or 3 kobolds in a trench coat. Like that's what you're doing.
Yeah. But I think the nature of that ability would push me to want to make this a con-only class.
Okay. I'm not sure about the aquatic nature. Clean Grip Flight. We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
As is, I wonder. So how many people can you reasonably provide full cover to? One right behind you? That's nice. What if they just kind of move at an angle? All of a sudden you're getting full cover even though they can see you at a diagonal, or even if they're completely perpendicular to you now. Now they just have a straight line of sight to the guy behind you, and it's not full cover. You're standing in front of them. I don't know if
I feel like
14th level. Ooh.
You'd almost need to have someone who can cast enlarge, or you pick up some magic item along the way that lets you enlarge yourself to make yourself bigger. Like that's where it really works the best.
I like that.
I could see that. But I think you make a great point there, Bacon. At 14th level, just being able to provide potential cover for one person behind you, I think we're falling back into that very odd, underwhelming stage.
The weird part is, for full cover, both of you have to be wearing heavy armor and wielding a shield, which is probably not going to happen.
Oh, that's a good point. And you see the both.
Oh yeah, because all the other classes seem to require, just as a whole, the empowered class is an unarmored class as well.
Yep. So like it won't be another empowered. You'll be the only person you're really going to benefit from that, I guess, is like a not a barbarian as a fighter. Or I guess paladin probably. No,
Yeah,
I
or
don't think
cleric.
paladin can do heavy armor. I'm not actually sure.
So
Paladins can.
Plus
Clerics
2.
can.
Yeah.
3/4
I think is +2. Full cover is +5.
Yeah.
So
Full cover is you can't be hit.
+2.
They don't have.
Okay.
They don't have line
You're
of sight.
untargetable.
Yeah.
I still argue once you get on a diagonal, you got that line of sight. Maybe maybe you can argue they're putting their shield out, but once you go to a certain point positioning wise, this is where I would think the battle map really tells you how useful this is. Like, this sounds cool. I think mechanically it wouldn't work the way I would want it to work if I were playing the class.
I think this becomes super effective if you're in a hallway.
Oh yeah.
If you're in a tight hallway and you're the first person, absolutely, you're providing full cover. No one's getting past you. You're Joker said it best, like you're a rampart. It's basically rampart. Yeah, you're essentially just you're the wall.
I am the wall.
But again, you make a great point, Bacon. Once you are behind, once you're around this cover scheme that's been created, this ability completely dissipates. And if something is capable of targeting behind or is arcing over, I think, again, if a blind fire goes over your shield, yeah, unfortunately that full cover kind of loses its functionality. And to have that be lost at a 14th level when things that you're dealing with can get around you in so many other ways, or never have to necessarily target you directly, it loses its function. It falls into that vigilante territory of it's themed really cool, but not at the stage at which you're getting it.
Yeah.
Let's see if they can make up for it. Offensive parry.
Yeah.
I love the idea of offensive parry. At 18th level, basically, if someone's right next to you and they want to take a swing at you, you can try to hit them first. And if you hit them first, their attack misses. And the way this is worded, you could technically read it as they're taking the attack action and not it's just one strike. So if you're a nice DM, you could technically say, like, I stopped them from performing their action completely, as opposed to just blocking one hit. I feel like a lot of people are just going to be like, I'm going to stop one attack from this multi-attack.
Yeah, I see where they're going with it. It's once per round. It's a reaction. You have to hit them, otherwise it does nothing.
Yep.
They're still going to hit you. And if you hit, they miss one of their attacks. Oh,
I also feel like this is
very Sentinel-esque.
Very Sentinel, and also, like, comparatively speaking, quite weak. But I think offensive parry as a feat that, say, like a monk or even the vigilante could learn, like when someone's close by, like if they turn this into one of the powers, the astounding powers that we're probably going to get into in the next video, because I know it's been 2 hours already, so we're just going to knock this one out. But when you get into astounding, if this was an astounding power by itself, I think that would be 100% fine. Like, you have the gift of foresight. Like, you're using what is it? Observation hockey. Like, you know that someone's about to hit you and you strike them first. I think that would be super cool. I would love to put that in. But as a capstone ability for a subclass, kind of weak.
Agreed.
Yeah, I have to say, that both Super Soldier and Vigilante have the same problem. In that they start off really amazing and very much teeter off into obscurity. And very much like the Vigilante, you're going to be more reliant on the things you find in your campaign than your character itself. So you're kind of once again forcing a player to become an equipment junkie, which again is fine because you want to make sure your players aren't only solely relying on their abilities, but abilities at the 18th level spells and things that you're dealing with, multi-attacks and things of that nature in a standard campaign, are going to severely outclass you. And in a campaign of empowered, on a team of empowered, the Vigilante and the Super Soldier are going to fall into the same problem of, you're just a guy with a shield, you're just a strong guy with a shield.
You're definitely like the two Vigilante and Super Soldier are definitely like if you were in a whole team of empowered, everybody had superpowers, and these two guys, like the onus is again on the DM to make them as powerful as the rest of the team, just based on what's here without any editing or anything. And while it's the whole game is working together, like it's a cooperative thing to work with your DM.
Of course.
Like it's not like players versus DM, even though a lot of people feel that way when they're playing. Like, but you want to be able to use what you've got to make your character great. And it's really hard when the other classes have such great abilities at the end, and these two are just
different scale. Because you think about like Captain America in Endgame, like that's he even gets Mjolnir for spoilers.
Mm-hmm.
He gets Mjolnir. If you haven't seen it yet, I don't know what you're doing.
Spoiler alert.
And the shield.
You've never seen the Endgame. Spoiler alert.
And he's going at it, right? That is still a different power level than Captain Marvel in Endgame, who can literally hold back Thanos with a gauntlet full of stones by herself. Like it's just a different power level, and that's I think what we're seeing here. I mean, you can excuse it in a cinematic universe because they each have their own tasks. But if you're all fighting the same boss on the same map in the same battle in a campaign, you're definitely gonna feel underwhelmed. So you're just there to clean up the minions with your shield. All right, maybe that's your job. Maybe that's your self-appointed task. But and then you see your partner over there hyper beam everything in 100 feet across the fields of Avernus right up to friggin' the Tower of Zariel. You're gonna feel a little underwhelming.
You turn into Adam from the Power Rangers movie. I'm a frog.
But you won't have a pretty lady to tell you that frogs turn into princes here.
That's true.
And now again, the onus does also rely on the player to flavor their character in a way that they should enjoy. And I don't want to ever make it seem that if you're running this campaign with people, you should, as a DM, tell people don't pick this class.
Yeah.
But I think that this would almost be a situation where I would want to tweak, obviously, the capstone abilities. Underwhelming very much as capstone abilities, just from a narrative standpoint or from a class standpoint, especially even comparing to base classes and what they can do. It feels very much like a class that would work better in an older edition of D&D, like a first and second, a first or an AD&D kind of thing, in which you don't have these abilities whatsoever. You know what I mean? So in those situations, these could have a lot of cool effects, but here I don't think they work as well in 5e. And hopefully, if you're running this class as a player, you find a cool way to make it better. But you're going to spend a lot of time min-maxing, I feel like, to keep up with people who won't have to do much based on their subclass. And that's natural across the board in all D&D classes, but I just worry for the player, especially a new player who's never played and sees Super Soldier and is like, oh, I get to be Captain America. Yes, you get to be Captain America surrounded by a team full of better superheroes.
Yeah. It's like the Hawkeye conundrum. Like all the time he's like, you don't understand, like I can't miss. And it's not that like I can't miss because I'm so good. It's I can't miss because I'm literally standing next to a god. Like there has to be something that makes me good.
I'm just a guy with a bow. None of this makes any sense. If you guys haven't seen the SNL skit, was it SNL or was it like a late night show where, yeah,
It
Jeremy
was
Renner
SNL, yeah.
dresses up as Hawkeye, and they're in like the Avengers fight in the original Avengers movie, and they're all doing their thing, and he shoots an arrow, and he goes back, and he's like, oh crap. All right, I'm out of arrows. I guess I'm just gonna go home.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, when you compare it to some of the other things that are given, a third level ability to break weapons versus an 18th level ability to block an attack and a 14th level ability to give cover. Again,
yeah, maybe. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say again, it's gonna fall on that player and DM to work together, which is a big thing. And a really important thing in any campaign, regardless of whether running empowered or running just standard 5e or whatever, TTRPG you're running. It's always important to make sure that you and your DM are working well together. It's just going to be really hard to not feel some sympathy.
Yeah.
I feel like even for me, I really would have to break that cardinal rule of let me pull you to the side and cater this. I don't want to have to cater a campaign fully to make one player feel up to par without the player also doing something as well. It's got to be a give and take, I feel like.
Yeah.
And then you've got Natasha Romanoff over here as the Vigilante. Amazing hand-to-hand, but you get into the endgame fight. Yeah. Her best play was to take one for the team. Rest in peace, Black
Widow. It's true.
Seriously. Her best move was really like, well, guys, I can't fight Thanos, so let me get you that stone you need. Peace.
Deuces. She disappears, like fades out, like the gif, the guy. Deuces.
Yep. You rip up your character sheet, and then you come back in as a Titan, and you start messing stuff up, or as a speedster, and like you just join the Avengers out of nowhere.
Do what you gotta do.
All right.
One thing I will say, yeah, that's a wrap. We've gone through all the subclasses in the base document, so we still have sounding powers to go through, which are like think meta magic options or Eldritch Invocations. We will go through those in a later video. But before we do go, I do want to say that if you become a member of the channel or if you join my Patreon, it's basically the same rewards. If you do, one of my options, I'm making my BGM list for TTRPGs public, the better one. I have a crap one, and then as I edit it, it became a better one. So the overall list is one of the rewards. But I'm also thinking of making my repository for homebrew content one of the rewards as well. Basically, all the homebrew content that I think is acceptable, granted, a lot of them need tweaks, that I think is acceptable, like I would let my players use in a campaign of mine, goes into the D&D repository. So I'm thinking of also making that something that other people may want access to. I don't really know how rewards work, so that's what I'm working on. I'm going to put the empowered in my repository, but obviously with caveats. So if someone in a campaign I was running wanted to be an empowered, we'd talk about it, but I'm not going to say no just because they say I want to be an empowered. We got to have reasons.
I like it.
Listen, story reasons are always important. Always important.
Got to tie it back.
But if you guys haven't, like, subscribe, follow, look out for more supplementals with Okami. There's a strong chance that myself, DM Bacon, DM Takehara, and other DMs may pop up. You never know.
Yeah.
We're always around to share our wealth of knowledge. And if you have us in any of the channels, feel free to pick our brains. Because we will tell you no. Prolifically. No, I'm just kidding. Only
I might be
tear down your DM ideas.
All right, make a really crazy roll and we'll see.
Yeah, like you're pretty much everyone who has chosen to be part of Supplementals. There's never a time where any one of us, someone will ask us about D&D stuff that we won't be like, huh, and then you'll get a novel in response. So feel free to hit us up on any way you want to. Come into the Yokomic Curry Discord. There's always a link in the description below. Like, we're here for you if you want to talk D&D, TTRPGs. We're pretty accessible as far as internet personalities go.
Oh, you're gonna say we're nerds.
I mean that too.
Yes,
that's obvious.
No. Listen, we like rolling dice and playing dice. All right, it's our thing. Just the thing we do. But Okami Bacon, thank you again for having me. It's been, as always, it's great. Takehara couldn't join us this week, but
it's true.
There's always future events.
Hey, we still have more of this document to go, so definitely, hopefully, I'm hoping Takehara gets to come back for at least the end of the first document, or even part of Empowered Extras. I'm hoping.
As time allows.
Who knows? Maybe we'll find some. Maybe we'll find some adjustments to the Vigilante and the.
Yeah, if you guys,
and
that's a great point I hadn't thought of. If anybody who's watching this live or via the VODs like has ideas, please leave them here. We would love to discuss them.
Oh yeah, ask away. Any questions you guys ever have, don't be afraid. We like DM Bacon said, we really like talking about D&D. It's just not apparent.
Joker, we need to introduce you to Speedy. Oh, you're in the server. Duh. Talk to Speedy. Just say, gun that shoots mana. You're about to make a new best friend.
As a person who has played with Speedy, I will tell you, you will make a true... There will be a lot of talk. Trust me.
Yes. What this game is all about, making friends.
Yeah! And with that...
friends you made along the way.
We will see you guys and gals later in the next stream. Maybe Monday, I don't know. We'll figure it out. There'll be notifications. Bye, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.